Rob's been before, so it's my first.
Okay, so what do you think of
This is my second time here. I think it's fantastic facilities, great staff members that we've worked with before. And I think it's really a great experience for us to come here and see what's happening in Tohoku Gakuin University, meet the staff, meet the students. I think it's excellent.
My first impression is that people are very, very friendly, very welcoming. So if that's the case for students as well, I'm sure it's an excellent university to study at. It's very good coming from Australia, because Japan and Australia are very different countries, and so you can learn so much from sharing the experience and seeing what a country's culture and its environment is like. And so it's a wonderful place to visit.
Well, Sendai has similarities to where we're from Adelaide, in terms of the size of the city and the pace of the city. Then you have the coast, and then you have the hills and the mountains. So as a tourism destination, from what I've seen, I think there's a lot of really interesting experiences for tourists to see, while also enjoying sort of the more relaxed pace of the city as compared to some of the busier places in Japan. So it's more accessible, you can travel around much easier, you can see lots of different things in a shorter time period. So for that, in terms of accessibility for tourists, I think that's a real real value there.
Yeah, Rob and I have been discussing this because it's very interesting for us to visit a place that's in some ways at an early stage of its tourism development. And I think the direction that Sendai chooses to go in terms of the kind of packages of experiences it puts together for domestic visitors, but it's easier in some ways for us to understand, I think, what it would mean for international visitors. And yet there's a lot of scope, because the university sector, again like Adelaide, is very important, and so using that as a base for tourism, bringing people in for educational visits, combined maybe with some of the cultural and environmental experiences that are available in this region, means there's a lot of possibilities.
I guess from an outsider coming here and seeing the things that I've seen, and knowing about the disaster that occurred, this shows that the Japanese and the Tohoku region people in particular have shown a great level of resilience to be able to recover and bounce back and rebuild. And so I think they need to be congratulated for their level of resilience in what they've done in order to sort of recover from that event. So I think my perspective is that event has occurred. The Japanese have recovered and they're resilient, and now there's a great opportunity now to expand and tell the story to the world about the great things that are here moving forward.
We're both tourism scholars, and I think one of the things that happens when you have a disaster is that it highlights in some ways the role of tourism. Firstly, it shows that the economy is very dependent on tourism. If the tourists stop coming, then it's only too clear that tourism is important economically, socially and so forth. So it reinforces the role of tourism. But in another way too, I think tourism, when people visit a region that has had a disaster, it shows how people from around the world have things in common, and they can share understanding and sympathise and be empathetic about the suffering and help people to recover by showing their concern. And that happens in a form of tourism where people share and express concern and so forth. So that's a dimension of tourism that you don't often hear about, but it's where people come together and support one another. So I think that's quite important in tourism.
Well, I think it's a great city and a great sort of location. When I walk around here, everyone is quite hospitable and polite and welcoming. So I think that culture of welcoming visitors it's already here, it already exists. So I think that's very important, and I'm sure that will support a great experience for those who are visiting. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I think that for a place like Sendai, in some ways, it's not the economic benefits. It's again, the sharing. One of the things about I've been involved in many Olympic Games, and there are intangible benefits, which is when people enjoy the experience, the excitement that exists in a place. People feel that the eyes of the world are on them, and they like that attention, and they like meeting the people that are coming to participate and to compete, and the people who... And there's a friendliness that is enhanced, even if it's a friendly city. During the Olympics, it'd probably be really friendly. People will like meeting one another on the streets. There'll be a relaxed atmosphere. And so I think there's an opportunity for local people in Sendai to just say, this is a special time, let's enjoy it, let's make the most of it. Let's welcome the people that we're meeting that are coming from all corners of the world to participate. So I think that's one of the great things about the Olympic Games. It's the way that the world seems a nice place, almost better than it normally is, temporarily, because people want to enjoy the experience.